I'm really pleased that for our first hour today, Congressman Marc Pocan has agreed to come on and take your calls for the first hour. He and I will talk for a few minutes about, what's going on in the world, and then after our first break, we'll just pick up your calls and do nothing but that for the rest of the hour. Am I correct in my understanding of that, Congressman?
Yes, I'm here for the hour.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us today. Our listeners absolutely love it when you come on and when you take their calls, and there's so much going on in the world today. So for our first hour here, it's, ask your congressman anything. And, so first of all, I'm curious your thoughts. I watched a little bit of, what went on this morning. In particular, Bernie just calling out the Trump versus the Republicans. Trump saying that he was not going to cut Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid, and the Republicans now already gleefully planning to do exactly that, to the tune of 30 to 50% cuts in all three programs. What are your thoughts on where all this is at?
Well, and yesterday, on changing, trying to gut ethics in Congress, the Republican caucus voted 2-1 against Paul Ryan's recommendations to completely gut the ethics board. And luckily, because the public cried out, we got a lot of calls, and they got a lot of calls, and they decided to switch it. But, President-elect Trump tweeted that morning, hey, I think this is a bad idea, although I think this will be another question. But what we're seeing is there's already a divide that's going to be there. And I think what I saw yesterday, Tom, in the first day was just an arrogance that they're in charge. They think they can do whatever they want. And I think that arrogance will really cost them.
Hubris is what brings people down, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And this is this party is just so badly infected by it. It's just extraordinary. Where are we at with regard to legislative schedules? Typically, when Republicans control Congress, they only meet 3 days a week. Usually, I think when Nancy Pelosi was running the House, it was 4 days a week. Correct me if I'm wrong. They take longer vacations under the Republicans. Are they? What's the calendar going to be like? Are they going to be doing a lot of stuff?
For the first 3 months, they've actually made it a little bit more aggressive because I think, again, they want to get in there. And before the public gets a chance to see what they're going to do to Medicare and the Affordable Care Act and some of these other issues, they want to get them done before there's really that shining of the light on them. So we've got a few 5-day weeks initially in the first couple months.
Whoa.
March, we're there all 4 weeks. Usually, there's a week that you're back home. And so it's actually a little bit more of aggressive calendar, but they're still going to have to convince the Tea Party and everyone else to allow things to come to the floor, and they're going to have this potential divide between the president-elect and the Republicans in Congress. Although my guess is with Reince Priebus as chief of staff, who's kind of the ultimate insider, very close to Paul Ryan, that Congress will soon be calling more of those shots unless we can really do what we did yesterday. When the public called up so many members and said this is an outrage that you would get rid of ethics, they had to reverse course. So I think, what we found is the power is in the grassroots. And, I've been telling everyone back home when they ask what they can do, double down with whatever issue or cause you care about the most and find the groups that are working on those and work with them, because we really can fight back from the grassroots level. And yesterday was a perfect example. So I think, the calendar will be a bit more aggressive because they want to get things done before you know what they're doing. Our job is to try to slow it up and make sure we shine as much light as possible on them.
It seems, though, the example of yesterday with the gutting the Office of Ethics oversight or whatever it's called, that had that not appeared in the media overnight in a big way, the grassroots wouldn't have known about it. And the thing that concerns me is there's so much that goes on. Let me just give you one example. Back in April of last year, 9-10 months ago, Marco Rubio inserted a rider into a budget bill that did away with the risk corridors for Medicare, for Obamacare. So that at the end of the year, the health insurance companies could no longer come to the federal government and say, okay, here's how, which they were supposed to be able to do for the first 10 years of Medicare, because everybody knew they were going to lose money, and say, here's how much money we lost, give us that money. And the government, and we'd already budgeted the money and everything, it was all cool, right? And by doing away with those risk corridors, what Marco Rubio did was, and the Republicans, but it was his specific rider, but everybody voted on it, What they did was they guaranteed that at the end of the fiscal year, at the end of October, or going into October and, of course, the November election, that every health insurance company in America would probably have to raise their rates. And sure enough, they did.
Yeah.
And nobody anywhere that I saw in any of the reporting about, oh, Obamacare is going up 20%, it's going up 30%, it's going up, did anybody mention the fact that the only reason, or the principal reason it's going up is because Marco Rubio and the Republicans did away with the risk corridors, and because risk corridors is one of those phrases that I'm guessing most reporters in this town don't even know what the hell it means.
We just spent an hour with Barack Obama and had a great hour and talked for probably 70% of it about the Affordable Care Act. And really what he started laying out is that, they're going to right away in the Senate, in the budget instructions, they're going to talk about how to try to replace it. But then they're going to have to do the really tough votes to do that. However, what they're trying to do is if they make it more difficult, if they wind up just saying we're going to repeal it and eventually have a replacement, which is what we think they're going to do, they still create some of the damage, not just for people the 20 million people plus who are getting help from the Affordable Care Act directly, but everyone else who's got lower rates because of the provisions that were within the Affordable Care Act that have kept them down. What people forget, and I've had a small business for 29 years, I used to get on a regular basis 20% increases from my employees on their health insurance. And we largely leveled that off, except pharmaceutical companies kind of were the first that started spiking things back. But if they try to put this in limbo and there's uncertainty, we know that the rates are going to increase for people, and if they actually get rid of it, they're really going to increase. And if you talk to a rural hospital like we have many of in Wisconsin, I think in Wisconsin alone they're going to lose $3 or $4 billion just through people coming in without having that access to health care. So there's going to be a lot of, I think, allies we can talk to about this, but I completely agree. They can slip a little line in that provides that serious cut that starts the bleeding that can really have a damaging effect.
Right, and then the media doesn't pick it up. People don't know about it, and everybody blamed President Obama for what Marco Rubio did, and Rubio got reelected in a state where so many people are. In any case, Congressman Marc Pocan is with us. He'll be back with your calls right after this. Stick around.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
You can find his website at Pocan, POCAN.house.gov. You can tweet him at Mark, M-A-R-K, Pocan, or at Rep Marc Pocan, either one. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Congressman Pocan, you're still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, let's pick up some calls here. Denise in Calumet, Michigan, watching us on Free Speech TV. Hey, Denise, you are on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, my question is, how are they going to stop, or how are you going to stop Paul Ryan and them from hurting the people that are already on Social Security and Medicare?
Well, this is one of the fights that if they decide to directly take it on, and they're definitely want to in the House, and you're seeing President-elect Trump far more skeptical, rightfully so. If they take this on, this is a no-brainer. We have the public with us, and that's where we have to mobilize. But, I'm really heartened by what happened yesterday. They thought they could slam through by doing a very late-night vote on a rules change to essentially take away how we have independent ethics in Congress, in the House of Representatives, and they, because of the public outcry, had to stop what they were doing. So if we let people know in every possible way that we can about what's happening, and people do the exact same thing, reach out, we can win on these issues. Medicare and Social Security are two of the most popular programs that we have offered by the federal government. And if they try to do a direct attack, we just have to get the word out about what they're doing, how they're doing it. We're already strategizing around the Affordable Care Act, and that's part of our conversation today, to show those real-life examples of what they're going to do and what that means. Yeah. And I really think we can fight back through the grassroots. That's the power that we have right now.
I discovered last year when I turned 65 that the retirement age for people my age is no longer 65, it was 66, a change that was apparently made with the Reagan changes back in the 80s.
And going up to 67.
Right. So now the new retirement age is 67. So what if in apropos of our caller's question, what if the way that the Republicans do it is everything's going to remain the same for anybody who's 55 years or older, period. You've got the old system. The new system will apply to people 55 years and younger, and it's going to be a better, new, improved system. Of course, you and I know, what that means. But do you think that they can sell that? Because everything I'm seeing, it looks like that's going to be their sales pitch.
Well, and they will try to divide and conquer, right? I mean, okay, you're currently getting it. We're not going to change anything for you. It's for someone else to try to stop the demographic that probably votes the most, which is usually by age, how people vote. They're going to try to appease them. What we have to do is realize that attacks on programs like this are going to attack your children and your grandchildren and have devastating effects down the road. But we can show those real-life examples of doing that. And I think if we do it from that basis, we know the public is with us on these issues, but we can't let them get away with what, unfortunately, President-elect Trump is very good at, which is a simple answer without any specifics or policies that sounds good in a 140-character tweet, but isn't so good in the real-life implications. We have to make sure that every way possible through the media, we're talking about those real-life implications, and more importantly, people are contacting their members of Congress and saying, okay, fine, it won't affect me, but it's going to affect my son, my daughter, my grandchildren. It's still the wrong thing. This has been a lifeline for my family, and that's why we've never touched in a negative way Social Security.
We're gonna have to message the hell out of it. I can see the tweets right now. Sorry, people over 55, you're stuck with that old program that you wanted. People under 55, much better! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark!
Right. Exactly.
It's just like that's what he's going to do. I mean, we've got to anyway. Congressman Marc Pocan is with us, taking your calls. I'm inserting myself way too much into this. I want this to be between you and our callers. We'll be right back with more of your calls for Congressman Pocan right after this. Stick around. For the hour, his website Pocan pocan.house.gov. He represents the 2nd District of Wisconsin. Dave in Armstrong Creek, Wisconsin. I'm not sure if you're a constituent or not, but certainly the same state. Dave, thanks for calling. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
I certainly am, and it's a happy New Year to both you and yours. And
thank you,
Congressman Pocan. I'm wondering if you could elaborate on what's going on with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources scrubbing the words climate change from their environmental statement. I know this has been pushed by our legislature and Scott Walker. Maybe you could elaborate on that.
Sure, Dave. Well, first of all, Happy New Year to you and yours. On the DNR, Scott Walker, desperately, as you know, wanted to be president, and now that he doesn't have a path, I guess he's going to take the fallback job of governor of Wisconsin, and he's got to suddenly, show that he cares about the state. One of the things, though, he had put in place was the scrubbing on our Department of Natural Resources website any references whatsoever to climate change that existed previously. So suddenly, there's nothing that relates to climate change or the fact that there's a factor out there that's creating the changes that we're seeing. And again, it's part of just that political correctness on the right to take away anything that's science-based, that's fact-based, and try to put that out there. What we need to do is just make sure that not only do they do that for the Department of Natural Resources, but the fact that they're going to try to maybe split the department into pieces as well to give it less power. This is something that, as you know, in Wisconsin, there's a long family heritage of hunting and fishing, and we have to let every single person who's a sports person know that this is going to have a negative effect on them. It's not just about what they want to pass off as the science of climate change that they don't seem to agree with. This is them going in and taking away the public lands that people hunt and fish on and trying to change things dramatically for corporations that want to make it easier for them to pollute so they don't have to have the same safeguards in place for people. So, Tom, I know Scott Walker is one of those governors that, we really need to get rid of in 2018. In Wisconsin, we've been feeling the pain both in our schools. We have the 4th worst roads in the country. He's cut the university system $250 million. You go down the list of what he's done, and it's had some pretty devastating impact. And the DNR is just one more of those areas, Dave, that they just don't want to accept facts. They just want to put their policy out.
Remarkable stuff. Horace in High Point, North Carolina. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hello?
Hey, Horace, you're on the air.
I would like to ask a question, but first I would like to make a comment. The Democrats are very good at fighting back. Don't fight back. Be in the forefront. Now, they have a plan to go to every state once a month and to let the public know exactly what the Republicans are doing. They don't have anyone articulate enough with skills to write bills. All they do is block and deny.
You're talking about the Republicans, I'm assuming, Horace.
The Democrats must step up and allow the public to know exactly what they're doing. And my question to you is, why sit back so much? Fight right from the beginning.
Okay, let's let the congressman respond
Horace,
to that. Horace,
I completely agree with you. And, I serve as the first vice chair of the Progressive Caucus. And I think, we, along with the Congressional Black Caucus, are probably going to be leading the resistance to this president. We are going to set forth alternatives and not just wait for the plan from the president-elect or from the Republicans in Congress, but show what infrastructure really is. Infrastructure is about rebuilding our roads and bridges and schools and broadband infrastructure, not about opening up public lands or giving tax breaks to big companies, which is, I think, what the House Republicans and Senate Republicans would like to do under the guise of infrastructure. So we're going to offer those alternatives to show the public a very clear contrast, but we are going to be aggressive. You're right. We're not going to be able to pass a lot of legislation. So we need to be as aggressive as possible in explaining what they're up to and what the alternative is, because I think that's what didn't happen in the last election cycle. You can't just say, I'm not that person. You also have to show what you really are and what you stand for.
Why not come up with like a
conversation? We're going to lead on that.
Why not come up with like a solid plan to expand Social Security, or a solid plan to, Nancy Pelosi tried to just extend long-term unemployment benefits. Unfortunately, it got no press, but when the Republicans filibustered that in the House. But just something that is progressive, that is positive, that is moving forward, and just put all the pressure of the party and pick a topic, one a month, and just push the hell out of it. I think that's the sort of thing that Horace is talking about.
Yeah,
not just being reactive, being proactive.
The question will be, I don't know if it'll be one a month or it'll be, as you know, the budget comes out early. A lot of things often turn up in that budget document, and the Progressive Caucus always puts out a really strong alternative. But we want to put out those things proactively so that when they put out something that's not even a half a loaf, it's barely even a piece of bread, we've got something to contrast to. We can say, it's not just that you have to accept their bad policy. Here's what you could have if someone else was in charge. And I think that is definitely on the agenda for the Progressive Caucus.
Right. We have just a minute to the break, which is not enough time to fairly, bring in another caller, although the board is full. So what do you see as the issues that would have the greatest potential for that sort of thing, of outreach basically to 2018's voters? Because we really need to be thinking about
given the schedule they're looking at, it's going to be Social Security, Medicare, and infrastructure, and of course the Affordable Care Act. Those are the things I think they're going to come out with the quickest. However, for a second, I don't want to forget that Betsy DeVos is going to be trying to privatize education, take funds to private schools, and we're going to have all the other attacks out there. But I think the big ones are going to be around Social Security, Medicare, infrastructure, and the Affordable Care Act. So I think those will probably be the ones that most immediately will be fighting.
Yeah, and I realize the Senate is where the approval of the cabinet members happens.
Yeah.
And you're in the House, but when does that process begin?
Very soon. I talked to Tammy Baldwin from Wisconsin. They're already meeting with a lot of folks. I think that will be happening over the next several weeks, actually.
Okay, very, very good. We're talking with Congressman Marc Pocan. He'll be taking your calls right after the news here at the bottom of the hour. We'll be back in about 4 or 5 minutes. And with more of your calls. Stick around.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And Congressman Pocan's website is Pocan, Pocan.house.gov. You can tweet him at Marc Pocan, M-A-R-K. Okay, we'll be right back.